Lídia Ferreira Borges was born in Lidia, a small municipality with just over 12,000 inhabitants, located in the state of Goiás, in Brazil. Still in childhood, she moved with her family to Caldas Novas, also in the state of Goiás. Caldas Novas is a much larger city than Lidia and has a population of almost 100,000 inhabitants. The city also attracts many tourists every year, as it has the largest hydrothermal resort in the world, with waters that sprout from the ground in temperatures ranging from 104 to 158 degrees. It was in Caldas Novas that Lidia grew up and graduated. The young woman was described as being a good-hearted person who didn't see evil in people, and therefore, some ended up taking advantage of her kindness. She was also described as being a very caring person and willing to help other people by doing what she could for them. In 2017, Lidia graduated in biological sciences from Unicaldas and started to work as a biologist. It is said that from a very young age, Lidia realized that life in Brazil was not easy compared to the lives of people who live in more developed countries. With that in mind, she began to nurture the desire to one day move to the United States and be able to have a better and more dignified life. In mid-2019, Lidia, then 25 years old, traveled to the United States. According to some sources, she would have told her family that she was only going as a tourist and would stay in the country for a few months, but in fact, Lidia had other plans. Lidia went with the intention of settling in the country and specializing in marine life, and that's why she chose to live in the city of San Francisco, California, which is the ideal city for that. Back in the United States, Lidia signed up for a cleaning app company, and sometime later, she opened her own party decoration company, and that way, she gradually conquered her things. Even away from her family, Lidia always made videos of the places she visited, the landscapes, and the adventures she experienced in the new city, and sent these videos to her relatives in Brazil. The young woman lived with a friend who was also Brazilian in an apartment, and the two got along very well. They would always go out together and let each other know where they were for safety reasons as well as concerned. It's not news that the United States is a country where many Brazilians like Lidia move to get a better life. Because of this, there are many communities of Brazilians in the country, and it was in one of these communities that Lidia met another Brazilian, a man named Geraldo Nunes, with whom she ended up getting involved in a relationship. Geraldo was described as a very kind man who liked to take care of Lidia, always being around to try to please her in some way. He would even have helped her move when she needed to change apartments, and he also would have assembled the furniture in the house for her. Geraldo worked at a pizzeria and was described by his co-workers as an exemplary and helpful employee. In early 2021, Lidia decided to break off her relationship with Geraldo. I didn't find the reasons that led to this decision, but what is known is that the breakup apparently occurred in a friendly way, since the two maintained their friendship even after the end of the relationship. Lidia and Geraldo even went out a few times as friends, but little by little things changed, and although it seemed to the young woman that it was something harmless, it was the other way around, and she was in great danger. As time went by, Geraldo began to insistently call Lidia, asking her to come back with him, but she didn't want to. When the young woman started to ignore his calls and messages, he started creating fake profiles on social media so he could talk to her and approach her again, and when he was discovered, he deleted the profile and created another one. It is said that he even made profiles pretending to be women so as not to arouse suspicion. Geraldo also started to follow Lidia wherever she went, even getting noticed by her friends who accompanied her in some places. At that point, her friends would have been worried about the situation and advised Lidia to report him to the police and ask for a protective measure, but she said there was no need, as he had never been aggressive towards her or shown any danger. But the truth was that Geraldo was completely obsessed with her. So much so that he even stayed outside the young woman's house, looking through the windows until he was noticed by one of her friends. On December 22, 2021, Lidia would have woken up early after receiving a message on her cell phone from the cleaning app she worked for. One person would have asked for a cleaning, and she then got ready and left before her friend who lived with her even woke up. Around 2 p.m., the friend would have sent messages to Lidia but received no response. She wasn't too worried since maybe Lidia was busy working, but throughout the day, she sent several messages and none of them were even seen by Lidia, which made her friend very worried. By 11 p.m., Lidia's friends had gathered and called hospitals and police departments. Initially, they believed that the young woman could have suffered some kind of accident, but after calling the places I mentioned, they realized that this was not what happened, since there was no occurrences in this type with Lidia's name. They then decided to report Lidia's disappearance to the police. In a few minutes, the police began searching for Lidia everywhere, from hospitals in other states and even abandoned properties. In the meantime, Lidia's friends informed her relatives here in Brazil that she was missing. Due to the great distance, despite the desperation, there wasn't much the family could do. But even so, they ran to social media and started posting pictures of Lidia asking for information. During the searches for the young woman that were being conducted by the police, her car was located parked in front of an apartment, and upon entering the property, the police found the bodies of a man and a woman. The same friends who had informed the police about Lidia's disappearance were called by them to recognize the body of the woman, because due to the preliminary information, everything indicated that the woman was Lidia. The friends went to do the recognition, and in fact, the body belonged to Lídia Ferreira Borges, 28 years old. The other body that was in the house, which was a man, was Geraldo Nunes. According to the police, Lidia would have left to the cleaning service first thing in the morning, and Geraldo, who was probably already following her, would have approached her at some point along the way and dragged her to his apartment. When they arrived at the property, it is likely that Geraldo tried to convince Lidia to return with him, but the young woman certainly refused, which would have led to an argument between the two. Geraldo then would have been furious, and in the sequence he took a meal weapon, threw the young woman on top of his bed, and struck her 3 blows in the neck area, which was more than enough to take her life. Then Geraldo Nunes took his own life with the same knife. Well, the police came to the conclusion of these facts through the evidence in the apartment that were collected by forensics, but the unfolding of how everything happened exactly is a theory, since both the victim and the criminal are no longer alive, and only they could say exactly what happened that day. With that, the conclusion of the investigation was that after Lidia ended the relationship, Geraldo didn't accept it and began to pursue the young woman for the next 7 months. He tried to get back together several times, but the young woman always said no, and so he decided to make one last attempt, which ended up culminating in the crime. The crime happened 2 days before Christmas, December 22nd, 2021. And after the family was notified, they had to file a body transfer process, which, as we already know, would cost a large amount of money. This amount was raised with the help of friends, family, and through an online crowdfunding. Lady Barbosa, Lidia's sister, managed to go to San Francisco in California on January 6, 2022, where she officially recognized the body, which was later sent to Caldas Novas. On January 7, 2022, the funeral and burial of Lídia Borges took place. Lídia Ferreira Borges, Lidia's mother, along with family and friends, managed to say goodbye to the young woman in a ceremony marked by sadness. Lídia thanked all the people who donated money so that the family could bring their daughter's body back to Brazil. She also said that although it was the most difficult time of her life, she felt relieved to get the money for the transfer and be able to say goodbye to her daughter. I didn't find any information regarding Geraldo Nunes' family or if his body was also brought to Brazil. What is known is that the case is still being investigated by the San Francisco police, and in a note, the Itamaraty informed that it is monitoring everything. Unfortunately, Lidia was yet another victim of an obsessive ex-boyfriend, like so many other women in Brazil and around the world. The outcome of the case would have been a shock to the Brazilian community in California, who were sensitized by what happened. Lidia's friends made an appeal on social media for other women who were going through something similar, even if the man didn't show immediate danger, to denounce him in case of stalking, as happened with Lidia. Alright folks, that's it for today. Thanks for watching until the end, best wishes, and I see you next time.